He uttered not a word when they mocked him, indicted him and convicted him, but, when he made one phone call on a phone, everything changed. What sort of man has the ability to shake a courtroom? Never. Having raised his voice, if that is a question that will remain in your head, then you are precisely where you should be. Let me bring you back to the time he appeared in that courtroom alone, misjudged, underrated, and with a secret no one could see coming. The door creaked open with the low hush of wormwood, and the breathless, excited hush. A few heads were lifted up. Most weren't men like him, no longer received much notice, but he came, slow and steady, not uncertainly but purposefully, as though time itself curved ever so slightly around him, and no other human being in that courtroom owed to hurry it. His name was Robert Bobby Clay, 79 years young, in spite of his physical appearance still having the firmness of longer received much notice, but he came, slow and steady, not uncertainly but purposefully, as though time itself curved ever so slightly around him, and no other human being in that courtroom owed to hurry it. His name was Robert Bobby Clay, 79 years young, in spite of his physical appearance still having the firmness of a man who had carried more weight than bricks. He wore a dark green flannel shirt, creased but worn, and flat trousers, bleached by many winters. His boots creaked at the seams but lovingly cared for, spoke of a man who would not present himself to the world anything less than whole. In his weathered hand he wore a felt hat, soft and wrinkled by years of use, nestled like an old soldier would grasp a banner, and not to display but to memory. As he entered into the defense table, whispers started, not muted, not open, but cunning as always. Another trespasser, again, here we go, why bother court time on this one? Robert Clay didn't flinch. He had heard it all before, in bus stations, in waiting rooms, at doors he once built but no longer invited. Through he clasped them, buried his head into the table, folded his hands in prayer, silent reverence, and gazed up with his eyes not to the judge, not to the ceiling, but straight ahead, firm, unmoving. The docket indicted his offense, unlawful possession of property. Condemned. The court saw only an offense. What they could not see was the truth. Robert Clay, Robert did not stand, he did not widen a words. He raised his eyes, calm and grounded, and spoke in simple tones. I'll speak when you're willing to hear. The judge leaned back contemptuously. He stretched indolently out for the gavel like a man would swat to fly. He did not deem worth remembering, but in the hush which fell the courtroom began to feel something disquieting, tremor heralding a ground shift. The judge barked again, Mr. Clay, are you responding or wasting time? Robert slowly blinked and then responded, in a voice so tight that made walls thinner. That house, it was mine. I helped construct the city. The judge laughed. Construct the city? That's rich. The other side, young journalist Daniel Cortez, his fingers drumming over his smartphone, poised to say something snarky. Old man says to him he constructed the city. Courtroom laughs, but there was something in Robert's tone that caused him to pause, because it didn't sound like boasting that it had sounded like recalling. Robert went on, I had a pencil beforehand, I had a book, I constructed walls to support the shattered rooms, perhaps to protect the crying spaces from harm that took in people's last breaths with pride. His voice was still soft, but each word found its place like a rock. Eyes, spaces constructed to heal us. Now I'm sitting in front of the walls of judgment. The courtroom never gasped, it just began to breathe a little more slowly. Sophia Patel, blinking quickly, the ancient memory, struggling to rise. Daniel Cortez set down his phone carefully on the desk. Judge Baxter wrapped around the file, nervously. So what you experience, your history, excuses, you're breaking in. Robert Clay glanced back in goodwill only. An immense weariness. No sir, I'm explaining the law has a memory flaw. The words hung heavily on the room, heavier than any gavel. Judge Baxter growled about sentimentality and rapped his gavel without ceremony. 30 days county jail. The penalty came hard and flat. Robert did not blink. He glanced only at his scuffed leather watch, then looked up.